Okay, getting everything set up, making sure the audio is good before I get started. And after everything sounds good on D Live, going into YouTube to make sure that that's all set up. I've got to make sure that the video is going to the proper playlist and give it a thumbnail, I guess, while I'm in here. Actually, I don't even know what thumbnail I am using for this. So let me just go ahead and see if that'll work. Yeah, there we go. Do an audio test. There we go. Sounds good on YouTube. Now go in and check it out on Rumble. Sounds good on Rumble as well. So everything seems to be up and running. Gonna check out Kick first. Kick sounds good. And Twitch. Now here before long I may stop using Twitch. I'm not really finding any use out of it. But I am going to stream as much as I can. If anybody's actually seeing it, make comments, that way I know. But if nothing else, I'm going to end up leaving it. So it sounds good on Twitch, but here we go. Looks like we got everything up and everything is good to go. I'm going to do my countdown after I take a drink of coffee and get started with the show. All right. 3, 2, 1, now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Weird Science. I'm Roger Hanson, and I will be your host. Last week, I had some issues that came up to where I could only stream half an hour, and I apologize for that. Today, I am coming back to you with another episode of Weird Science, and I have more topics to discuss. So, with that being said, let me go ahead and get into the talking points or the topics and go from there. So, the origins of high frequency active aurora research program can be traced not to a military facility in Alaska, as many commonly believe, but rather to a more obscure and unexpected source. A Texas oil company operating in the mid to late 20th century. The intellectual and technical foundation for what would eventually evolve into the massive ionosphere or ionospheric heater in Gakuna, Alaska, began with a single inventive mind, a physicist by the name of Bernard Eastlund. His work developed while under contract to a subsidiary of a major oil enterprise eventually produced a patent that has become infamous in both scientific and conspiracy circles alike. Bernard Eastman's professional background straddled the worlds of corporate science, advanced physics, and defense adjacent technologies. While collaborating with a subsidiary of Atlantic Richfield Company, a major petroleum firm based in Texas, Eastland was tasked with exploring non-traditional uses of the company's vast natural gas reserves discovered in Alaska's Prudhoe Bay. The idea was not merely to extract and transport this energy, but to find in- innovative ways to utilize it in situations. This line of thinking gave rise to the concept of using gas-generated electricity to power a massive electromagnet transmission facility capable of interacting with the ionosphere. The potential application Eastland filed in the mid-1980s was granted in the summer of 1987. It bore the title "Method of Apparatus for Altering a Rain or Region in the Earth's Atmosphere, Ionosphere and/or Magnetosphere." It proposed a system of ground-based radio transmitters that could send high-powered radio waves into the upper layers of the atmosphere. These waves would cause localized heating, altering the behavior or change or changed no, altering the behavior of charged particles in the ionosphere and magnetosphere. While atmospheric heating had been experimented with before on smaller scales, Eastland's concept was remarkable for its scale, ambition, and multi-domain implications. According to the patent, the electromagnetic waves generated by the proposed apparatus could be used to manipulate the ionosphere in various strategic ways. For example, the energy could be focused to create a lens or mirror effect in the atmosphere, potentially allowing for the reflection of communication signals over the horizon. More provocatively, the patent suggests that such a system could interfere with or even disable incoming ballistic missiles by disrupting their guidance systems. The apparatus could, in theory, simulate the effects of a nuclear explosion in the sky, producing high-altitude electromagnetic pulses without the use of fossil materials. What made the patent even more provocative was its reference to potential weather modification. By heating specific regions of the upper atmosphere, it might be possible to affect wind patterns, jet streams, or even precipitation cycles in a targeted area. Although this idea was presented in theoretical terms, the suggestion that one could manipulate weather systems from the ground fed directly into the more dramatic speculation that would later surround the high-frequency active aurora research program. The use of electromagnetic waves to influence the ionosphere is not a purely speculative endeavor. The basic science behind this has been confirmed through smaller facilities, like those located in Tromsø, Norway, and near Fairbanks, Alaska, before the construction of the larger facility in Gakona. These installations showed that high-powered radio waves could indeed induce ionospheric heat, stimulate the production of low-frequency waves, and generate artificial auroras. Eastland's patent took these foundational concepts and imagined their application in a grander, more transformative scale. The relationship between the original patent and the later government-funded research project is not purely hypothetical. The original patent was assigned to a company called APTI, a subsidiary of the Atlantic Richfield Company, which was later contracted by the United States Air Force and Navy to develop what would become the High Frequency Active Aurora Research Program facility. When APTI was sold to a larger defense contractor and later acquired by yet another major defense entity, the patent rights and associated technology went along with it. Bernard Eastland himself would later claim that the design of the facility was based on his patent, even if the full scope of his more radical ideas were never fully implemented. The site, constructed in Gakuna, Alaska, consisted of a phased array of high-frequency antennas spread over a large field. These antennas were capable of generating focused beams of radio frequency energy directed upward into the ionosphere. The purpose of these transmissions was publicly stated as scientific research to study the natural dynamics of the ionosphere and to develop advanced technologies for radio communications and surveillance. However, the public availability of the Eastland patent, combined with the facility's remote location and military oversight, led to a range of suspicions and theories. Among the more controversial ideas drawn from the original patent was the claim that the facility could influence weather patterns or be used as a weapon. Although the scientific consensus largely dismisses the idea that such an installation could have a practical effect of global weather systems and original patents. No, wait a minute. The idea that such an installation could have. Okay. Although the scientific consensus largely dismisses the idea that such an installation could have a practical effect on global weather systems, the original patent's language is sufficiently broad and suggestive to fuel ongoing speculation. The patent even alludes to the possibility of creating artificial plasma layers, redirecting particles trapped in the Van Allen belts, or disabling satellites and aircraft electronics, concepts that sit on the edge of conventional physics but were not excluded from the realm of possibility by the patent itself. The timing of the patent is also worth noting. It was filed during the height of the Cold War, when technological supremacy was viewed not merely as advantageous but essential. The United States and the Soviet Union were both engaged in extensive research into exotic defense systems, including particle beams, weather control, and space-based surveillance patterns. In this context, Eastland's intervention would have appeared as an imaginative and potentially valuable tool in the ever-escalating arsenal of high-tech defense capabilities. What set this particular patent apart from typical defense-related inventions is its unusual fusion of energy infrastructure that advanced atmospheric physics. The idea of using natural gas resources to power a geophysical weapon was, at the time, unconventional and illustrative of the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that sometimes characterizes research sponsored by major corporations with ties to government contracts. Although the eventual facility constructed in Alaska did not operate with natural gas power as Eastland had proposed, the vision embedded in the original patent remained influential in shaping the research and technical framework of the large project. Bernard Eastland would go on to file another patent that expanded on the principles outlined in his original documents. These included more refined systems for beam steering, artificial ionospheric mirrors, and even concepts involving the manipulation of atmospheric conditions to support missile defense. While his name is not widely known outside of certain technical or speculative communities, his contributions to atmospheric physics and defense theory are significant. His original patent remains one of the clearest bridges between corporate energy interest, scientific exploration, and military technology development. The very language of the patent suggests that its author was well aware of the controversial implications of his ideas. It speaks not only of enhancing communications, but also of disrupting them, not only of atmospheric study, but also of atmospheric control. Whether these capabilities were ever fully realized remains uncertain, but the potential envisioned in the patent was vast and ambitious, and in many respects ahead of its time. As the high-frequency active Aurora research program became operational, a number of public outreach efforts were made to frame its purpose in purely scientific terms. Tours were offered, academic collaborations were initiated, and data was published. Nevertheless, the shadow cast by Eastland's original invention remained. The notion that a system had been proposed decades earlier which could potentially affect everything from radio communications to climate patterns ensured that the project would never be entirely free of scrutiny. Even today, with the original military-run version of the project having been transferred to a civilian research institution, the theories and fears associated with Eastland's patent endured. Much of his persistence is due to the sheer breadth of his claims and the openness with which they were presented. Unlike classified documents or covert programs, this patent was a public document available to anyone willing to read it. That openness has made it a cornerstone in the architecture of both legitimate inquiry and less grounded speculation. In a broader sense, the legacy of the patent reflects a recurring theme in modern technology or technological history: the convergence of military ambition, corporate resources, and scientific vision. The invention was not the product of an isolated genius working in obscurity, but of a deliberate effort by a large energy company to repurpose its assets in a way that might influence the skies themselves. Whether that influence was intended to be benign or strategic, remains an open question, but the implications of the work are clear. The apparatus described in Eastland's patent envisioned a world where upper atmosphere could be shaped like clay on a potter's wheel, subject to the invisible hand of electromagnetic force. It imagined a future in which human beings standing on the ground could reach up into the charged layers of the sky and alter their behavior for communication, defense, or possibly environmental purposes. That vision, while never fully realized in the precise terms described in the patent, nonetheless set the stage for one of the most enigmatic and debated scientific installations of the modern era. The concept of the magnetic monopole occupies a unique place in the history of science, straddling the boundaries between theoretic physics and experimental pursuit. It is, in its simplest form, a magnetic monopole is a particle or object that possesses a net magnetic charge, meaning it would act like an isolated North Pole or an isolated South Pole. In contrast to every magnet observed in nature, which always has both the North and South Pole, regardless of how finely it is divided. A magnetic monopole would be a singular source or sink of magnetic field lines. Though never observed in nature, the idea of such an entity has persisted through generations of scientific thought, fueled by the elegance it brings to the mathematical frameworks that describe the physical world. Excuse me. Magnetism, as commonly understood, arises from the movement of electric charges and the alignment of microscopic magnetic movements in materials. Ordinary bar magnets owe their properties to the spin of electrons and the arrangement of atoms in ferromagnetic substances. When a magnet is cut in half, the result is not a separation of poles, but the creation of two smaller magnets, each with its own north and south pole. This fundamental symmetry has led to a widely accepted belief that magnetic dipoles are inseparable. Yet the theoretical possibilities of breaking this symmetry and finding a genuine monopole remains one of the most enticing quests in modern physics. The origin of the idea stretches back to the early 19th century, when scientists began developing the field theories of electromagnetism. The Scottish physicist James Clerk Maxwell formulated a set of equations that described the behavior of electric and magnetic fields. These equations contain a notable asymmetry. While electric charges exist in positive and negative forms, there are no corresponding magnetic charge in his model. Magnetic fields always arise from currents or dipoles, never from isolated monopoles. Maxwell himself acknowledged this imbalance and speculated whether a magnetic charge might someday be discovered. However, the idea remained dormant until the early 20th century. It was in the early 1930s that the concept of the magnetic monopole received a profound theoretical foundation through the work of British physicist Paul Dirac. He showed that if a magnetic monopole existed anywhere in the universe, it would explain the otherwise mysterious phenomena of charge quantization. In simple terms, all observed electric charges are exact multiples of a fundamental unit, such as the charge of an electron. Dirac demonstrated that the existence of even a single magnetic monopole would require this quantization as a natural sequence of quantum mechanics. This insight not only restored symmetry to Maxwell's equations, but elevated the search for monopoles from a speculative notion to a matter of deep physical significance. Despite the elegance of Dirac's theory, the decades that followed yielded no direct evidence of magnetic monopoles. Experimental physicists searched high and low, from the depths of particle accelerators to the analysis of moon rocks and meteorites. Some detectors were constructed specifically to spot the characteristic magnetic signatures that a monopole would produce as it passed through matter. Though a few anomalies were reported, none proved conclusive, and the existence of the magnetic monopoles remained unconfirmed. In the meantime, theoretical development continued to lend support to the possibility of monopoles. In the later half of the 20th century, efforts to unify the fundamental forces of nature, particularly the electromagnetic, weak nuclear, and strong nuclear interactions, led to a family of models known as grand unified theories. These models predict that at extremely high energies, such as those present in the first instance after the Big Bang, the distant forces merge into a single interaction. Crucially, these theories also imply the spontaneous formation of magnetic monopoles during symmetry, breaking phase transitions in the early universe. According to these models, magnetic monopoles would be extremely massive, far heavier than any known particle. Their density should have been significant in the early universe, yet today they appear to be absent. This inconsistency is known as the monopole problem. To resolve it, cosmologists proposed the theory of cosmic inflation. In this scenario, the universe underwent an exponential expansion within a tiny fraction of a second after its birth. This inflationary burst would have diluted the density of monopoles to a level where they would be exceedingly rare today. so rare that none may exist within the observable universe. In more recent years, interests in magnetic monopoles have resurfaced in an unexpected place: condensed matter physics. In certain crystalline materials known as spin ices, researchers have observed emergent quasi-particles that behave like magnetic monopoles. These are not fundamental particles, but collective excitations of atomic spins that mimic the behavior of an isolated magnetic charge. In a spin ice lattice, the magnetic moments of atoms arrange themselves in a frustrated geometry, where flipping one spin can result in a disturbance that propagates through the lattice as a magnetic monopole. These discoveries have provided experimental systems in which the physics of monopoles can be explored, albeit in a limited and indirect way. The study of these synthetic monopole-like objects have advanced our understanding of magnetic charge and may pave the way for new technologies. For instance, the systems that use magnetic currents rather than electric ones could benefit from the ability to manipulate isolated poles if they can be stabilized and controlled. However, these laboratory analogs do not resolve the deeper question of whether true monopoles exist as fundamental entities. One of the difficulties in detecting a magnetic monopole lies in its presumed rarity and mass. If such particles exist, they may be so massive that even the most powerful particle collider cannot produce them. They may also interact with matter in ways that are subtle or difficult to distinguish from background noise. Some experimental strategies involve placing large volumes of detector material deep underground, shielding it from cosmic rays and radiation, in the hopes that a monopole might someday pass through and leave a detectable trace. Another promising avenue is astrophysical observation. Monopoles, if they exist, may be accelerated by cosmic magnetic fields and produce unique signatures as they move through space. Efforts are underway to search for these effects using radio telescopes, neutrino observatories, and cosmic ray detectors. Yet the vastness of the cosmos and the potential scarcity of monopoles make these efforts akin to looking for a single grain of sand in the ocean. The philosophical implications of discovering a magnetic monopole are as profound as the scientific ones. Their existence would provide the missing half of the magnetic puzzle and complete the symmetry between electric and magnetic phenomena. It would validate decades of theoretical work and potentially open the door to a deeper unification of the forces of nature. It might also lead to practical applications that are difficult to predict. much as the discovery of the electron eventually gave rise to electronics, computing, and telecommunications. Moreover, the confirmation of magnetic monopoles would lend credence to the idea that the universe is governed by principles of symmetry and elegance. In modern physics, symmetry is not merely a aesthetical idea, but a guiding principle that shapes the formation of laws and interactions. The existence of magnetic monopoles would reinforce the notion that for every electric phenomena there exists a magnetic counterpart, even if it has remained hidden for most of human history. Some speculative theories even suggest that magnetic monopoles could play a role in cosmic evolution or the structure of space-time itself. In certain models, monopoles are tied to topological defects in fields that span the universe. These defects could act as seeds for the formation of galaxies or influence the curvature of space-time. Others propose that monopoles could serve as carriers of exotic forms of information or be harnessed for advanced propulsion systems, though such ideas remain far from realization. The search for magnetic monopoles thus remains one of the grand challenges of contemporary physics. It is a quest driven not only by the desire to confirm a theoretical prediction, but by the deeper yearning to understand the fundamental natures of the universe. It reflects the same curiosity that led early scientists to discover electricity and magnetism, that drove Maxwell to unite them into a single theory, and that inspired Dirac to find harmony between quantum mechanics and relativity. Whether or not monopolies are eventually found, the pursuit itself has already enriched our understanding of field theory, quantum mechanics, and condensed matter systems. It has led to innovations in experimental design, inspired new generations of physicists, and expanded the frontier of what is considered possible. If they are discovered, magnetic monopoles will become part of the known landscape of physics, reshaping textbooks and redefining the Standard Model. They remain elusive. They will continue to haunt the margins of theory, a reminder of the mysteries that still await. Morgellons is a controversial and poorly understood condition that has sparked debate among patients, doctors, and researchers for many years. People who report having morgellons describe a range of troubling symptoms, most commonly skin lesions, sensations of crawling or stinging on or under the skin, and the appearance of unusual fibers or particles emerging from sores. Some individuals also report fatigue, memory loss, mood disturbances, and joint pain, making the condition seem both dermatological and systemic. However, despite the consistency in patient reports, morgellons remain officially unrecognized as a distinct disease by many mainstream medical organizations. The term morgellons was revived in the early 20th century or 21st century by a mother whose young son was suffering from skin lesions. She used the word after discovering a 17th century medical account describing similar symptoms in French children. The modern wave of reports, however, did not gain significant attention until patients began connecting online and describing their shared experiences. This network of testimonies helped Morgellons grow from isolated complaints into a larger collective phenomenon. Medical investigations into Morgellons have been mixed. One of the largest studies conducted in the United States was carried out by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in collaboration with Kaiser Permanente, Kaiser Permanente. Published in the early 2010s, the study examined a group of patients in California who reported symptoms consistent with Morgellons. Researchers concluded that the fibers found in the lesions were mostly cotton or other commonly encountered substances. They did not find evidence of a new or infectious disease. Many of the patients studied also showed signs of psychological stress, delusional thinking, or mental illness, which led to the conclusion that Morgellons might be a manifestation of delusional parasitosis, a known psychiatric condition where individuals falsely believe they are infested with parasites. However, this conclusion has not satisfied many patients, advocates, or independent researchers. Critics argue that the study was limited in scope, failed to address many of the more complex or systemic symptoms reported, and did not adequately investigate the biochemical composition of the fibers. Some clinicians have found evidence that the fibers are not simply textile contaminants, but may contain biological materials such as keratin or collagen. Other studies have pointed to the presence of spiral-shaped bacteria similar to those that cause Lyme disease in skin samples of Morgellons patients. This has led a small group of researchers to propose that Morgellons could be a dermatological manifestation of a chronic bacterial infection. A particularly contentious aspect of the Morgellons debate is its overlap with chronic Lyme disease. Some practitioners who treat Lyme disease believe that Morgellons is a co-infection or a secondary effect caused by persistent bacteria in the body. According to this theory, the fibers seen in Morgellons are produced by the body itself in response to infection or inflammation. Others speculate that an immune system imbalance or environmental exposure could trigger the symptoms. While this view has not been widely accepted by mainstream medicine, it continues to drive research and treatment approaches in some alternative and integrative health communities. There is also a sociological dimension to the Morgellon phenomenon. The internet played a critical role in shaping how people understand and identify their symptoms. Online forums and support groups have provided validation and solidarity for sufferers, but they have also contributed to the rapid spread of self-diagnosis. This dynamic has made it difficult for physicians to distinguish between psychogenic or um, psychogenic between psychogenic illness. Yes. This dynamic has made it difficult for physicians to distinguish between psychogenic illness, where symptoms arise from psychological origins, or a potential new disease that is simply not yet well understood. In some cases, patients have brought extensive documentation to their doctors, including photographs, videos, and even physical samples of the fibers. When their concerns are dismissed, frustration and distrust can grow, leading patients to seek care outside conventional systems. Another layer of controversy surrounds the suggestion that Morgellons may be linked to exposure to unknown environmental agents, nanomaterials, or bioengineering substances. These ideas often fall into the realm of speculation. These ideas often fall into the realm of speculation and are frequently dismissed by scientists as unproven or conspiratorial. Nevertheless, the intensity of belief among some patients has led to persistent questions about whether environmental toxins, industrial pollution, or even deliberate human intervention could play a role. These theories have not been confirmed, but they illustrate the deep anxiety and uncertainty that many sufferers experience when searching for answers. The challenge of Morgellons lies in its intersection of multiple disciplines. It touches dermatology, psychiatry, infectious disease, immunology, and even neurology. The lack of definitive biomarker or tests makes diagnosis difficult, and the absence of consensus on its cause or treatment creates frustration from both patients and healthcare providers. Some physicians treat the condition symptomatically, focusing on skin care, antibiotics, antidepressants, or antipsychotic medications, depending on the individual case. Others reject the diagnosis entirely, viewing it as an internet-driven delusion. Meanwhile, a smaller number of doctors have developed protocols based on the idea of chronic infection using long-term antibiotics and herbal supplements, though this approach remains controversial and is often criticized for lacking scientific validation. For the patient's or from the patient's perspective, Morgellons can be an isolated and traumatic experience. Many report being dismissed, misdiagnosed, or treated with skepticism, by the medical system. Others face ridicule from friends, family, or online commentators who do not believe their condition is real. The social stigma compounds the physical and psychological burden of the illness. For those who believe they are afflicted, the suffering is undeniably real, even if the underlying mechanisms is still in question. A God helmet is a controversial and fascinating device developed to explore the relationship between brain activity and religious or mystical experiences. Created by Canadian neuroscientist Michael Persinger and his colleague Stanley Coren in the late 20th century, the device was designed to stimulate specified areas of the brain using weak magnetic fields. Persinger claimed that this stimulation, particularly when applied to the temporal lobes, could induce altered states of consciousness, including the sensation of a presence, profound spiritual awe, and even out-of-body experiences. The name God Helmet came from media portrayals of the device, reflecting its association with experiences that users described as religious or transcendent. The helmet itself was not a complex or high-powered piece of equipment. It was essentially a modified motorcycle helmet outfitted with magnetic coils and connected to a computer that generated low-intensity electromagnetic signals. These signals were carefully patterned to mimic the natural activity of the brain's own electronic or electrical processes. Persinger believed that certain types of brainwave stimulation could unlock latent physiological capacities, producing sensations that people throughout history have interpreted as contact with supernatural beings or divine forces. Persinger's experiment involved hundreds of volunteers who wore the helmet in a quiet, darkened room while their responses were monitored. Many participants reported a strong sense that someone or something was in the room with them, even though they were alone. Some described a benevolent presence, others sensed something ominous. A few reported visions or deep emotional insights. Persinger interpreted these results as evidence that spiritual and religious experiences could be triggered artificially by manipulating the brain's electromagnetic environment. According to Persinger, the temporal lobes of the brain are especially involved in processing emotion, memory, and self-awareness. He hypothesized that under certain conditions, such as stress, sensory deprivation, or electromagnetic stimulation, these areas could produce sensations of another intelligence or presence. He believed that throughout human history, people experiencing natural or accidental stimulation of the temporal lobes may have interpreted the resulting sensation as visitations from gods, spirits, or the metaphysical or other metaphysical beings. The God helmet was, in his view, a tool to demonstrate that these experiences were rooted in biology rather than external realities. The response to the God helmet within the scientific community was deeply divided. Some researchers found Persinger's work intriguing and worthy of further study, especially in the context of neurotheology, the field that explores the neural basis of religious experience. Others criticized his methodology, questioning the consistency of his results or challenging the interpretation of his findings. One of the main criticisms was the difficulty in replicating the effects in other laboratories. Some experiments conducted by independent researchers failed to produce the same intensity of experiences reported in Persinger's studies, leading to speculation about whether the device truly worked as claimed or whether the effects were largely due to suggestion, expectation, or placebo. Nonetheless, the idea that religious or spiritual states could be neurologically induced was revolutionary in its implications. If divine experience could be artificially generated by stimulating the brain, it raised profound questions about the origins of belief, the authenticity of mystical encounters, and the nature of consciousness itself. For some, this was an argument in favor of materialism, that all aspects of human experience, including the most sacred, are products of brain chemistry. For others, the fact that the brain was wired to experience the divine was taken as evidence that such experiences have a genuine basis, even if they are facilitated by neural mechanisms. Persinger himself did not claim that the God helmet disproved the existence of God or the supernatural. Instead, he suggested that the human brain is a natural conduit for spiritual experience, and that understanding its workings could help explain why people from all cultures and eras report similar kinds of religious and mystical events. He maintained that his research was not meant to reduce religion to a trick of the brain, but rather to explore the mechanisms through which such experiences are made possible. Outside the laboratory, the God helmet gained attention from the journalists, television programs, and popular science writers. Some people who tried it reported powerful and moving encounters. Others felt nothing at all. The variability in responses only added to the mystery and controversy surrounding the device. The God helmet became a symbol for the growing interest in how neuroscience intersects with age-old questions about the divine, the soul, and the unseen dimension of reality. Today, the legacy of the God helmet continues to influence research into altered states of consciousness. While Persinger passed away in the 2010s, his work laid the groundwork for further studies in brain stimulation, including the use of techniques like transcranial magnetic stimulation and transcranial direct current stimulation. These methods, though more advanced and precise than the original God helmet, aim to explore similar questions: how the brain constructs reality and what happens when its usual patterns are disrupted. The Kardashev scale is a method of measuring a civilization's level of technological advancement based on the amount of energy it is capable of harnessing and using. It was first proposed in the mid-20th century by Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev, who envisioned a framework for understanding the development of intelligent civilizations on a cosmic scale. Rather than measuring progress by political structures, cultural achievements, or military power, Kardashev focused on energy consumption, which he believed offered a universal benchmark that could be applied to any civilization, whether human or alien. The central idea behind the Kardashev scale is that a civilization's ability to manipulate and consume energy reflects its capacity to exert control over its environment. The more energy a society can harness and use effectively, the more advanced it is presumed to be. Kardashev originally divided civilizations into three broad categories: planetary, stellar, and galactic, each representing a different level of energy control. These categories are commonly referred to as Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3 civilizations. A Type 1 civilization, according to Kardashev's model, is one that can harness and use all of the energy available on its home planet. This includes not only the energy derived from fossil fuels and renewable sources, such as wind and solar, but also geothermal energy, ocean currents, and the planet's total atmospheric and hydrological systems. Such a civilization would have achieved complete control over its natural environment, able to manage weather, control earthquakes, and regulate potentially and regulate ecosystems with precision. It would have eliminated energy scarcity, potentially ending poverty and resource-driven conflict. In human terms, reaching this level would mean fully exploiting the Earth's energy budget, estimated in the mid-20th century as being in the range of tens of petawatts. A Type 2 civilization is far more advanced. It is capable of harnessing the total energy output of its star, not just the energy that reaches its planet. In our case, this would mean capturing all the energy radiated by the sun. To accomplish this, a Type 2 civilization might construct vast structures in space, such as a Dyson sphere or a Dyson swarm, encircling the star and collecting its energy output directly. Such a society would have complete control over its solar system, including the ability to mine planets, redirect comets, and build megastructures on an astronomical scale. The engineering challenges involved in reaching this stage are immense, requiring materials and energy far beyond anything currently available to humanity. However, the rewards are equally immense: access to energy many orders of magnitude greater than anything. Wait. However, the rewards are equally immense: access to energy many orders of magnitude greater than anything available at the planetary level. A Type 3 civilization takes this progression to its ultimate conclusion. It is able to harness the energy of an entire galaxy. This includes not only the energy from billions of stars, but also the rotational energy of galactic structures, the gravitational potential of black holes, and possibly even dark matter and dark energy, if such forms of energy can be utilized. A Type 3 civilization would likely be capable of traveling between star systems at will, altering the structure of galaxies, and potentially even manipulating the fabric of space-time. It would be effectively godlike in its capabilities, at least from our current perspective. Such a civilization might appear indistinguishable from nature itself, having reshaped its surroundings so thoroughly that its presence is difficult to detect. Although Kardashev's originally although Kardashev originally envisioned only three types, later thinkers expanded the scale to include intermediate levels and beyond. Some theorists introduced fractional types, suggesting that a civilization could be described as type 0.5 or type 1.2, depending on its precise energy consumption. Others propose type 4 and type 5 civilizations, capable of manipulating the energy of multiple galaxies or even the entire universe. These extensions, while speculative, help frame the broader question of what is physically possible within the laws of nature and what ultimate limits might exist for intelligence and technology. Humanity, as it stands today, is yet even a Type 1 is not yet even a Type 1 civilization. Estimates place us somewhere around Type 0.7 on the Kardashev scale. We are still largely dependent on fossil fuels, and while renewable energy is growing, it represents only a small portion of our total consumption. Our ability to manage natural systems is rudimentary, and we remain vulnerable to natural disasters, climate change, and ecological collapse. Ecological collapse. Achieving Type 1 status would require a transformation of our global infrastructure, economy, and values. It would involve not only technological innovations, but also political coordination and cultural adaptation on a scale never seen before. The transition to a higher Kardashev level is not just a matter of increasing energy output. It also involves changes in energy efficiency, sustainability, and ethical use. A society that generates vast amount of energy while destroying its environment or enslaving its population would not be considered truly advanced. Many thinkers argue that a civilization must also evolve in moral and social terms in order to manage its growing power responsibly. This raises the question of whether technological advancement naturally leads to ethical maturity or whether the opposite might occur. Kardashev scale, the Kardashev scale has also influenced the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. If intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe, and if it has developed for longer than humanity has existed, then it is reasonable to expect that some civilizations may have reached Type 2 or even Type 3 status. Such civilizations might be detectable through their energy signatures. A Dyson sphere, for example, would absorb visible light from its star and radiate the energy as infrared heat, creating a distinctive spectral fingerprint. Astronomers have searched for such signature using data from space telescopes, although no conclusive evidence has yet been found. This absence of detecting this part of the broader Fermi paradox, which asks, now this absence of detection is part of the broader Fermi paradox, which asks why we have not encountered signs of alien life despite the vastness of the universe. Some interpretations suggest that the transition to higher Kardashev types may be more difficult or dangerous than it appears. Civilizations may destroy themselves through warfare, ecological collapse, or technological missteps before reaching planetary or stellar mastery. Alternatively, advanced civilizations might become so efficient or so contained that they leave very few detectable traces. They may retreat into their virtual realities, live in megastructures that are perfectly energy balanced, or operate on principles entirely beyond our current understandings. Critics of the Kardashev scale argue that it is overly simplistic. Energy consumption, they note, may not be the best or only measure of advancement. A truly advanced civilization might use less energy rather than more, having perfected efficiency in eliminating waste. Such a society might exist in harmony with its environment, using subtle technologies to achieve its goals with minimal disruptions. Furthermore, the scale does not account for developments in biology, information theory, or consciousness. A civilization might be incredibly advanced in these domains while consuming relatively modest amounts of energy. Despite these critiques, the Kardashev scale remains a powerful tool for thinking about the future. It provides a cosmic perspective, helping to situate humanity within the broader arc of possible development. Challenges us to consider what lies ahead, what obstacles must be overcome, and come and what responsibilities come with greater power. It also invites philosophical reflection on the nature of intelligence, the meaning of progress, and the destiny of conscious beings in a vast and mysterious universe. Some futurists link the Kardashev scale to a specific technological milestone. For example, achieving Type 1 status might involve the global fusion energy. Type 2 might require interplanetary colonization, solar scale construction projects, and artificial intelligence capable of managing complex systems at astronomical scales. Type 3 might involve interstellar travel, the engineering of entire star systems, and the manipulation of exotic forms of matter and energy. Others propose that the scale could be multidimensional, with different axes representing not just energy, but also information processing, consciousness development, and ethical sophistication. This multidimensional approach would allow for a richer understanding of what it means to be advanced, recognizing that different civilizations may evolve along different paths, depending on their environment, history, and priorities. In recent decades, the Kardashev scale has also inspired speculative fiction and popular science. Writers and thinkers have imagined what it would be like to live in a Type 2 civilization, with humans harvesting the power of the sun through space-based solar arrays, terraforming other planets, and coexisting with intelligent machines. Still more ambitious stories depict Type 3 civilizations building galactic networks, exploring parallel universes, or achieving forms of immortality and transcendence. These visions, while fictional, help explore implications of real scientific ideas and offer a way to engage the public in thinking about the long-term art in about no, these visions, while fictional, help explore the implications of real scientific ideas and offer a way to engage the public in thinking about the long-term future. Importantly, the Kardashev scale reminds us that humanity is still at the beginning of its journey. Our technological achievements are impressive, but they are dwarfed by what may be possible. The challenges we face, climate instability, energy transition, resource management, are not just problems to be solved. They're steps on a staircase that leads to higher order of existence. Whether we ascend or fall depends on our choices, our vision, and our willingness to think beyond the immediate and the familiar. The scale also encourages humility. It, con- it in contemplating civilizations capable of manipulating stars or galaxies, we are forced to reckon with the limits of our knowledge in the scale of the cosmos. We must admit that we do not yet understand the full range of what life and intelligence can become. This awareness can be sobering, but it can also be inspiring. It suggests that the future is not closed, that the boundaries of possibilities have not been reached, and that the universe They hold moral wonders than we can currently imagine. So, yeah, I thought that would actually be a lot longer than what it was. We only made it up to an hour and 19 minutes. I'm completely amazed by that. I had 5 topics set and ready to go, and we went right through each one of them in just an hour and 20 minutes. It's pretty interesting. I didn't think that would happen, to be honest with you, but we did it. And like I said on a couple of my other shows, I want to say it again on this show since it actually happened here. I apologize for last week only being a half an hour long. I had some issues that took place where I had run late uh, in the day, and I wasn't able to get on and do my episode on the time that was allotted to me, and I was really pressed for time. So I had to just give it a half an hour and be done with it. So I apologize about that. I hope you guys did enjoy this episode. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, make comments, not just in the chat, but also down in the comment section. You would be amazed how important that really is, just to reach out and give a comment to somebody that you're supporting. You don't have to give money or anything like that. Just say hello. You can make a comment about the topic or just say hello and have a conversation with them. At least with me, you can. So remember, man, leave a comment down in the comment section, and I always respond to anybody who leaves a serious comment for me. So just reach on down there and give me a comment, and I will respond to you. So thank you guys for stopping in and checking me out. I really did enjoy doing this one. Just trying to go through and find out what we have for comments. Okay, so now we have comments on Kick where it says it's not luck, it's all math and strategy. I started small and scaled up. Okay, yeah, so that's just a scam trying to get me to do that. I thought it was actually, we don't have anything at all for any comments, which is fine. That means I can get off of here and be done with it. I actually thought somebody gave a comment on Kick, which they didn't. So that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, but I think I've already given that spill. You can find me on Kick, Rumble, Twitch, DLive, and YouTube. As on Rumble and on YouTube, I am at the Wonderful World of Weirdness, and on YouTube, I am at the Wonderful World of Weirdness, as well as Strange Stories, which you can find also on YouTube. On Rumble, it's just the Wonderful World of Weirdness. On DLive and on Kick, I am Roger_Hanson. You can find me there as that. And on Twitch, I am Infamous 1969. Now I am the Wonderful World of Weirdness at the Wonderful World of Weirdness on YouTube. So, with that being said, I guess I can close this out and be done with it. I hope you guys have a good day, good morning, afternoon, whatever time of day it is, and I will talk to you later. Bye.